Okay, so welcome again to today's presentation on First LEGO League's Judging from a Team Perspective. Our presenter today is First LEGO League Global Judge Advisor Skip Gridley. Skip is an aerospace engineer with the United States Air Force Research Laboratory. He's worked there since 1989 as an engine integration researcher, program manager, and team leader, helping develop technology for future advanced aircraft systems. In 2002, he volunteered for his first event, a regional First LEGO League qualifier tournament in Cincinnati, as a pit guard, and he's been hooked ever since. He was the Ohio FLL State Judge Advisor from 2005 to 2012 and continues to volunteer, usually as judge or judge advisor, at qualifying and state tournaments. In 2008, he was asked to be the First LEGO League Global Judge Advisor to develop judging processes and training, as well as to serve as the Judge Advisor for First LEGO League at the World Festival every year. Since 2012, he has also coached an FTC team, First Tech Challenge, and helped to grow FIRST programs in Springboro, Ohio, from 25 First LEGO League and Junior First LEGO League participants to over 100 kids on FLL, Junior FLL, and FTC teams. He has been an FRC judge since 2002 at the Buckeye Regional and the Judge Advisor at the FRC Queen City Regional since 2012. In total, he's participated in over 100 FIRST tournaments as a volunteer judge or coach. He's also been to 2 as a fanboy spectator for his 11-year-old son's FLL team. In 2013, he received the President's Call to Service Award for volunteering over 4,000 hours lifetime on various FIRST activities. So we're going to go ahead and turn things over to Skip.
Thank you very much, Jen. We have a lot of ground to cover tonight, so I'm just going to dive right in with tonight's topic, judging for teams. There are several topics to go over, and what I'm going to do is describe each one of these bullets and then give you all a chance to ask and get your questions answered on those particular topics. If I know that an answer to one of your questions is coming up in a future segment of tonight's webinar, then I will hold the answer until then. So the topics tonight are a quick overview of judging, what you can do before your tournament to help your team prepare for judging, what you can do at the tournament, and what you should expect will happen. I'll talk a little bit about the awards that are available. Then I'll finish with telling you what you should do after the tournament to help learn from your experience, and then I'll wrap up with some vital judging tips. So by way of overview, people ask, well, why do we do judging in First LEGO League? Well, there are really 2 main purposes. It gives the teams an opportunity to demonstrate what they have done during the season and receive feedback on how well they achieved FLL objectives. And FLL objectives are reflected in the rubric, which I'll go over here shortly. So you can know what we feel, FLL feels as a program, are important things to take away from First LEGO League. The judging sessions also give judges a good format and a good way to gain information about the teams to use for award decisions. Youth, what do they gain from judging? It's founded in the 5 C's of positive youth development. They get to demonstrate the competence in their subject matter. They get to gain confidence by demonstrating in front of peers and adults. They make that connection with engineers and STEM professionals in the community, helps build character and interaction, and also caring about their community. I mentioned the rubrics. In those documents are the key takeaways from the FLL experience. What they show are the expectations for learning and the behaviors that the teams will demonstrate, and also gives judges a standard evaluation excuse me, with specific criteria and levels of fulfillment. I won't get into too much detail about each individual rubric item. What I will say that you know, there's a lot of information in the rubrics, a lot of different takeaways. we don't expect every team to be exemplary in all of them. We realize, new rookie teams may even be at the beginning level, developing levels, but we hope that each child, by the end of their experience in FLL, comes out roughly at the accomplished level in each of the categories. You can visit the website for these rubrics and also any questions, frequently asked questions about judging. It's at firstlegoleague.org/events/judging. I will remind you too that judging is also founded in our core values, and it permeates throughout the judging process. Some examples are, we are a team is one of the core values. We expect all the children to participate together in the judging sessions. Kids do the work, and the judging process is a way for us to determine that happens. Pardon me, my phone was ringing. We have a range of awards available to recognize teams with different strengths. We emphasize celebration versus competition. We help reinforce what they learn through the judging process. We recognize gracious professionalism, not only from the team, but all the kids, coaches, parents, mentors associated with the team. And we would like to say, especially we anticipate a lot of coaches and teams out there are coming up in the next few weeks on their first event, first time as a coach, first time as a team, and they're like feeling scared and wondered if they should even go to a tournament. And we have to remember that First Lego League core value of what we discover is more important than what we win. And we really want and encourage teams to go and learn what happens at NFL tournaments so they can come back stronger next year. We want them to get the practice of showing what they've done even in the short amount of time they've had this season. Judges at First Lego League tournaments are most of them are inherently friendly, and the rest of them we train to be really friendly and help give you that that feedback that you need to improve, and also tell you where your strengths are. So you can get a good idea of what you what you've done well and what you can take away next year to learn. Do realize that not all tournaments are run the same, and especially when it comes to qualifying tournaments versus championships, in terms of award structures and things like that. Different regions handle things like spectators differently. Judging schedules vary. Some flexibility exists in the way that core values and robot design are judged. But despite all those differences, we do have a set of standards to maintain consistency across First Lego League events. All tournaments are to adhere to the global judging standards, which include no team having more than 10 members, 3 separate judging sessions of at least 10 minutes each, the use of those official rubrics that I mentioned, and there are some others centered around teams attending multiple events. That doesn't happen a lot, so I'm not going to get into too much detail, but that information is available on the website if you're in one of those regions that's lucky enough to attend multiple events. And again, just to reinforce, in order to receive an award, and really what we want you to teach your kids is participate in all elements of the competition, including the robot game and all 3 judged areas. You have to do it to get an award. Excuse me. We encourage it anyway because it's a good learning experience for the kids. Excuse me. As I mentioned, a lot of this information is available in the coach's handbook, so we encourage you to review that as well. So that's a basic judging overview. I'm going to open it up for any questions now before I go into what you should do before a tournament to help prepare.
So far, Skip, we do have a couple questions about what is allowed in regions as far as regional differences.
Okay. Well, the main regional differences are centered around how the 3 different types of judging are performed, or what requirements are for each type of judging. The project judging should be uniform from region to region. That's a 5-minute project presentation from your team, followed by a question and answer period. That's a minimum of 5 minutes long. Majority of regions will have 5 minutes. Some will have more than 5 minutes. For robot design, you'll have a minimum of a 10-minute judging session, or a 4-minute robot design executive summary, followed by 6 minutes of questions and answers. The robot design executive summary requirements should be available from your the FLL partner in your region, or the tournament director for your tournament that you're attending. And my suggestion, even if you're in a region that does not use the executive summary, is to go to the website and download the information for what that executive summary entails, because it's a good sort of standard way to present your robot design information to the judges, so that they get all the information that they need to complete the rubric. Finally, for core values judging sessions, again, there will be a minimum of 10 minutes for judging. Typically, the regional variations occur with whether or not a teamwork activity is asked to be performed by the team. Usually that's approximately 4-minute session where the kids will be given a teamwork task to complete, and then followed by a question and answer period. Some regions will also require a core values poster, in which case the team will be given about 2 minutes to explain their core values poster, and then followed by a question and answer session. So the basic breakdown of a core values judging session typically will be a teamwork challenge for about 4 minutes, an optional core values poster review for 2 minutes, and then the additional time will be question and answer period. Excuse me. Again, if your region doesn't use the core values poster, I would suggest that you not necessarily make one, but go over all the information that goes on a core values poster, because again, that will really help you prepare for that judging session and help get that information that the judges need to help evaluate your team. Those are the main regional variations in terms of the actual judging process. Really, one of the other key ones would be the ability for spectators to observe judging, and that's pardon me. That's really dependent on space and scheduling issues for venues. So, are there more questions, Jen?
We do have a few. One that I just wanted to bring forward is we've got a number of questions coming in that are really specific to the robot game, and I will make sure that we forward those on to Scott Evans. We're going to keep focused on this presentation on the judging process. So please feel free. You can go ahead and send me those questions, and I'll get them to Scott Evans. But we're going to really keep this focused on the topic of judging for now. We do have a number of questions coming in, but I think it might be wise to just push forward for a little bit, and then
Okay.
we can come back around to them.
Sure. Okay. So I'd like to talk a little bit now about how to prepare your team, what to do before a tournament. First, review the coach's handbook, review all the challenge specifics on the website, and all material there to develop a solid understanding of the challenge, what the project requirements are, the robot game missions and rules. Ensure your team seeks out the best and most current information. That includes all challenge updates and judging Q&A on the website. Download those rubrics and help your team become familiar. Figure out how your team can achieve more and accomplish more. Realize that all rubric criteria are evaluated and considered equally. Can't stress enough to obtain tournament specifics from your local organizer and make sure you understand them. Things like what's the qualifying tournament system like in your region? How many teams advance from a qualifying tournament? Any registration requirements, deadlines, costs, etc. If your team does not have the mandatory consent and release forms through TIMS, make sure that those are all signed and available at your tournament. Anticipate any power equipment that you may request or ask if they have, for example, projection screens or extension cords. Don't assume that those will be provided. Check first, and if they're not, you will have to bring them yourself. Ask about the awards structures for if you're going to a qualifying tournament, because there are a couple different options. Find out about opening and closing ceremony procedures, time and place. If there's a coaches meeting before the tournament, or sometimes tournaments will have a call-in coaches meeting. Find out what your schedule is, where you need to be, and when you need to be there. How you're going to use the practice table, any site maps, emergency procedures, etc. Now, those all may sound like non-judging related stuff, but realize that changes in schedule or misunderstandings about schedule, locations, etc., could affect your judging sessions. Make sure you have all your material prepared to bring to the judges. That includes any project supporting data. It's helpful to have a robot picture and programming printout, and maybe a specification sheet to leave with the robot design judges. Core values poster if it's appropriate for your region. A team profile sheet to help judges identify and remember you. A big helper here is those sheets typically allow for a photo. It's helpful if your team wears your t-shirts that you're going to wear the tournament day and isn't like a picture of them at practice in their school shirts or some other attire. It's helpful for the judges to see kind of how they're going to be at the tournament. Make sure you practice with your teams. Can't stress this enough. Timing expectations especially. Make sure that they speak slowly, loudly. A lot of times events will be sort of less than ideal from an acoustic standpoint, and so you want to make sure that the kids practice enunciating and projecting. Role play and ask sample questions as if you were a judge. Get additional help from parents and supporters doing this. Practice as much as you can. Practicing and sharing also helps fulfill that project requirement of sharing with people. I've had a coach suggest try practicing your presentation in every room in your house, because you never know kind of where you're going to be on tournament day. Again, practice with sort of non-familiar people, watching them. Encourage your team to relax and have fun. If anyone on your team has special needs, I would encourage you to make those aware to the tournament as much as you and their parents feel comfortable doing. That helps judges, be aware of anything that may seem out of the ordinary, but in fact isn't, because of the special needs of the child. If there are any strategies needed to accommodate those, please alert the tournament organizer. Expect the unexpected. Have a plan B if kids are sick, if equipment fails. Especially things like PowerPoint projectors and things like that always seem to, even bite people as adults. So, which may mean they actually work better for the kids, but but certainly having a backup plan is good. Basically, it's the old Boy Scout motto: be prepared, and practice as much as you can. So that's kind of, I guess, my tips for before a tournament. Again, you're all at the point now where you are before a tournament, and so a lot of these tips, sort of thinking about them now and making a checklist of things will help you prepare over the next few weeks. So Jen, do we have any questions about preparation?
We do. Some of this sort of pertains to the actual judging process itself, but I do think this will qualify. We have a few people asking about preparing their teams for the judging process and whether they should divide roles so that there are specific people who speak about, say, the project presentation. One coach asks, will the team be penalized if one or more team members do not actually speak during the project presentation? These members have done research on the project and have non-speaking parts in the presentation but are shy about speaking in front of the judges and new members. And similar to that, another coach asks, she explained that she tries to have her team try all aspects of FLL, but she's interested in hearing from you your perspective that if the judges ask in robot design, for instance, who's your programmer and only speaks to those specific kids because of time limits, is it a good idea to assign specialists for the judges according to those specific roles? There's a couple questions that are coming in like that, but I think those two kind of encapsulate.
Sure. Well, kind of my overall view of that is, we want all the kids to at least understand kind of all aspects, and we realize that some are going to focus on say programming or research or whatever interests them. Some teams are going to have a more equitable distribution, if you want to call it that, and some are going to have kids who are naturally more outgoing and more interested in speaking. And I certainly would suggest doing what's natural for your team, and because we want the team, the kids to feel at ease and calm, but also empowered to speak when they want to or need to. Judges will also occasionally ask specific kids, especially like say a shy kid or a quiet kid is also very distracted and not really engaged in the presentation. A judge may want to, for lack of a better word, call them out and ask them a specific question. So I would encourage that if there are kids with non-speaking roles to at least make sure they're engaged in the presentation. Make sure also that they can answer questions. They don't necessarily need to speak. What judges don't want to see is, the whole team looking to one or two kids to answer all the questions and, appear to carry the load for the team. And worse yet would be children relying on their coach to do that. So so that's I guess my basic advice is to try to engage kids as much as you can, but we realize too that sort of a natural flow of the presentation is going to it's just going to feel better, it's going to present better, and I think the judges and the team both are going to have a better experience walking away from that, and you'll be better able to communicate the message that you're trying to communicate. So that's sort of the A part of the question. The B part is make sure that anyone can answer a question, or it's just sort of typical good presentation style to offer to get the information for them, say on a pit visit, or to not deflect, but refer a question to the child that has the information that the judge is asking. Does that help?
We're getting some feedback that yes, so I appreciate that. There was one follow-up question that said,
Sure.
Can there be kids who did not program or did not build but all contribute to the team as a whole? We understand that research is different and everyone is usually working on everything.
Yes, I mean, if I would encourage that if you have someone who doesn't say program at all, that they have at least a basic knowledge of what was done. You could practice your robot design presentation with that child as a questioner, or as an additional person to kind of you want to arm them with as much knowledge as possible. And again, also, as I mentioned, a good way for that child to handle it well, I specialize in research. Janie was our main programmer. She can best answer that question.
I think for now, it's probably best if we, in the interest of time, just keep things moving. But I am noting the questions as they come in. So if you haven't heard yours yet, don't worry. We'll get to it.
So at the tournament, what should you do? Realize that I am in no way going to go through this whole slide in detail. It's mostly up there to tell you that the process is a long process for the judges and a shorter process for the teams, and you only see kind of one part out of 10, and that's the judging sessions themselves. And after the judging sessions are over, the judges go off and really spend a lot of time deliberating and discussing your teams, ranking them in various award categories, discussing their suitability for Champions Award. We talk about your robot design, your projects, your core values. We deliberate a lot back and forth. We finalize the awards. We don't just take the hard numbers from the rubrics, and we also don't just pull numbers out of a hat or pull teams out of a hat. There really is a thoughtful, deliberative process behind it. With any judging, there is some subjectivity, so I always tell my judges that provided they perform due diligence, that the answer that they come out with in terms of awards is going to be correct, because a reasonable set of people could come to a different set of award winners, but they may have their own reasons for selecting those winners. So, you know, there is I think a little bit of a misconception sometimes that there's a lot of secrecy or behind the scenes stuff going on with judging, and I want to dispel that rumor or that myth, and just tell you that you know, the judges, after they talk to your kids, are going to spend equal amount of time talking amongst themselves to decide on award winners and who advances and all that information, in addition to filling out the evaluation, the rubrics, and providing that feedback. So a tremendous amount of time and effort is spent by the judges on this process to kind of meet those two objectives that I mentioned, which is to evaluate and provide feedback, and then also to recognize quality work. Sorry. Additional things at a tournament, I can't stress enough the schedule and layout. Make sure you know where your team needs to be and when they need to be there. You really need to be on time for your judging sessions. Usually the judging takes place in rooms separate from where the robot game is held, like nearby classrooms in a school versus a gym. So you may have to walk. In some cases, I've seen them held in different buildings, different days, etc. Always plan to be early for each judging appointment. Stay alert and flexible. Sometimes, you know, it's winter time's coming up. Some states, you know, may try to speed up a tournament if they know an ice storm's coming or something like that. You just never know what's going to happen. So be alert and flexible. I mentioned spectators. Some tournaments allow coach and spectator access. Some only allow team access. We leave this up to the tournaments to decide, so that's something to ask your tournament organizer. I mentioned the judging process a minute ago. Recognize that, you know, there's that first step that you're involved in directly, and then the rest of the deliberation steps are spent, you know, part of the time is, well, your teams are doing the robot game. Part of it's, you know, could be, well, if those of you who are experienced, you come to the end of a tournament and you're waiting and wondering what's going on. Well, they're still talking. The judges are still talking awards. Sometimes judges need additional information, so they may call your team back as like a finalist in a judging category. Note that these are for clarification purposes. Not every team that may be in contention for award needs to be seen. Sometimes the teams are videotaped at events and eliminate the need for callbacks. Not all events have the time or scheduling ability for callbacks. So callbacks should not be seen as a either we're going to win an award or we're not going to win an award. They should just be seen as a might happen. They might ask us more information. Be ready. That deliberations process I mentioned is a way for judges to normalize between themselves. You have an easy grader versus a hard grader, if you want to look at it that way. Gives them the chance to compare teams. Be patient while we're finishing this up. It's going to be a long day, and if it's like every tournament I've been to, you know, the kids will be tired. They'll have gotten up early. They'll have eaten a lot of sugar. They'll be zipping around, and then they'll get tired and want it to be over. And that's when the fun and celebration at the end of the day happens. Judges may also come by your pit area sometimes and talk to you there. They may observe you, as I say, in your natural habitat, which is the pit or on the robot game playing field. Realize that volunteers and judges are observant for your team throughout the day at the venue. So, you know, if we see shenanigans in the parking lot, that could be reflected eventually in discussions for your team for awards. That also includes coaches, mentors, and parents. So try to encourage everyone associated with your team to be on their best behavior. It's a shame, but we have, you know, I've been at events where it came down to two choices for an award, and one of the teams had parents who were a bit overzealous, and so we ended up picking the other team. Really, by the time the tournament is over, or by the tournament day, excuse me, your job as a coach is you can kind of think of it as, you know, those little teeth with feet that if you wind them up and then the teeth just go, that's your team, and you've wound them up, and your time now is just to watch them go and cheer them on, guide them to where they need to be, help them navigate the schedule, encourage them when they're down, celebrate when they're up, celebrate when they're down too, and that's part of the encouragement. Try to avoid, you know, getting too involved. Really, it's their chance to shine, and it's your chance to let them do that. So that's kind of all the tips I have for at the tournament. We can take a couple questions now before I just briefly discuss the awards.
Thanks. We do have some great questions coming in, and I just want to thank everybody for being such a lively audience. We had a coach who asked whether there's any consideration given for larger teams, given the difficulty in getting all the kids on the same footing with regard to programming, design, research, the project, etc. I know the answer to this, but I'm going to go ahead and let you take this because I have a feeling that others will have the same question.
When it comes to team size, as long as the team is within the sort of the parameters from, I believe it's 2 to 10. I know it's 10 maximum. You know, judges really don't look a whole lot at, okay, it's a big team and they had a hard time getting everyone involved, or they were too specialized, or you know, we really look at the, you know, nowhere in the rubric is there an evaluation based on size of team or number of team members. It's really what the accomplishments of the team as a whole. And so I would not worry too much about team size at an event when it comes to judging, especially. The judges, you know, they're going to look at those rubrics, and if your team can demonstrate achievement at whatever level they demonstrate, that's where they'll be evaluated.
On the opposite end of the spectrum, we have somebody who just asked, what about the opposite, a small team? Are smaller teams penalized? If you have only 3, is it looked upon as easy to cooperate?
Yeah, the answer to that, short answer is not penalized. You know, I've seen teams varying size. From one of the first tournaments I went to, a team of 3 was the state champion. I've seen teams size, you know, 10 kids be the world champion. It just depends on you know, what the teams do. All teams have their own unique dynamic.
Great. Once again, just to keep things on schedule, I think maybe if we could keep going, we'll come back to some of these other questions later on. That'd be great.
Okay. I'm going to talk a little bit about awards. I'm not going to go into a huge detail about each award specifically, mostly because that would take a lot of time. I do want to make you aware of a few things, specifically award eligibility. In order to be considered for an award, teams must meet the age requirements, which in North America is 14 in the challenge year. Outside of North America, it's 16. Have 10 or fewer team members at the tournament in judging sessions. Participate in all 3 judged areas and the robot game for any core awards. Be at their first official event at each tournament level. All team members participate in each judging session. And then the kids must demonstrate core values. There are 2 different types of award structures for all championship tournaments and for larger qualifying tournaments. The 3 core areas will be broken down into 3 sub-awards. At smaller qualifying tournaments and qualifying tournaments only, the 3 sub-areas will be broad and include all of the sub-areas. So, for example, at small qualifying tournaments, you may have just a core values award, but at larger and championship tournaments, core values may be broken down into inspiration awards, teamwork awards, and gracious professionalism. Robot performance is a core award at both sizes of tournaments. That's determined all on the table, the robot game table. And then most tournaments have either some optional awards for people like volunteers, mentors, coaches, or judges awards, which are kind of a wild card type award, and then they may have local awards. The Champions Award is kind of the award that brings it all together for those teams that are strong in all 3 areas. For all events, the Champions Award winner is a team that's balanced and strong across all 3 areas. All 3 judging sessions are weighted equally to determine the candidates for that. All Champions Award teams must meet those eligibility requirements. The team that wins the Champions Award must be in the top 40% of the teams in the robot game at that tournament. So, for example, if your tournament has 20 teams, you would have to score in the top 8 teams to be eligible for Champions Award. All the teams that are in contention for Champions Award are discussed during that deliberative process that I mentioned earlier, and then voted on by the full judging panel to choose the winner. Quick note about advancement policy. Since most of you are coming up on qualifying tournaments, advancement is based on the Champions Award criteria. So what that means is it's based on balanced, strong performance across all 3 areas again. The teams must meet the eligibility requirements. There's a slight change for what hurdle percentage and robot game scores they have to meet to advance, and that depends on the percentage of teams advancing from your tournament. And this is a good number to ask your tournament organizer to tell you. So I'll pick one example. If you have a 16-team qualifying tournament and 4 teams from that tournament have been identified to advance, that means 4 out of 16, the advancement percentage is 25%. You look up on this chart, the robot game hurdle is 48%, so your team must be in the top 48% of teams at that tournament to be able to advance. Ideally, your tournament will announce the hurdle to the teams attending your tournament. If not, I really encourage you to ask your tournament director, because that way there's no misunderstanding about what you need to do to advance to the next level of tournaments. Realize too that advancement is not award-based, so it is possible to win an award in any area and not advance because your team is maybe particularly strong in one area but not as balanced as the judges see from other teams at your event. Again, it's all based on teams at your event. So what you have to do is show your well-roundedness to the judges. Some teams that win an award may not advance, and conversely, some teams that don't win awards may advance because they weren't, super strong in one area, but they were well-rounded. So that's a quick overview of the awards and advancement policy. Before I get into sort of the wrap-up, go ahead and take some more questions.
Great. We do have a question about Judges Award. How are the Judges Awards selected?
Judges Awards are selected for reasons other than core award categories. Typically, they have to do with maybe a team that had to overcome an obstacle even to compete. Significant obstacle, had to maybe they're a young team. I hesitate to use the term young because some of the young teams are even more polished and more accomplished than senior teams. A team that's sort of, you can tell that they're going to be a good team in the future if they keep at it. They have the enthusiasm, they have the interest, they have the excitement. It could be considered a rising star team. That might be a good. I could see a tournament awarding a rising star award to a team that didn't win an award in one of the core areas, but was going to advance to the championship. So it really is a wild card type award for the judges to recognize any team that they feel is worthy of recognition. Ideally the tournament will explain at the closing ceremonies why the Judges Award was awarded to that particular team. More questions, Jen?
Yep. We have one that asks, can a team win the Champions Award in 2 consecutive years?
I didn't catch the whole question. I'm sorry.
Sorry about that. We have a question from someone in the audience that asks, can a team win the Champions Award in 2 consecutive years? And when you answer that, if you could also just clarify the policy on the awards at each level of competition, the number of awards, because there's a couple questions about that as well.
Sure. I'll sort of take that in reverse order. So the policy is at any given event, a team can win only one award unless it's the Robot Performance Award. The Robot Performance Award can be won in addition to another award because that's based purely on robot game score. That can be won in addition to another award, even Champions Award. Quite frequently, the Robot Performance Award is won by a team winning another award. Now, a team can only win an award at the first tournament at any given qualifying level or tournament level. I'll give you an example for Ohio. Ohio has 3 tournament levels. We have a qualifying tournament where qualifying tournament system or level where 30% of the teams advance on to the next level, which we call districts. And then 30% of the teams from the districts advance on to our state championship. So we have 3 different levels. A team could win a qualifying tournament champions award, a district level champions award, and a state level champions award. So they could end up with champions of 3 different levels. They could not win an award at multiple qualifying tournaments. They couldn't advance to multiple district tournaments, etc. They can only do that for the first level. I think that answers all of those related eligibility questions. Is that correct?
Did you win the Champions Award in 2 consecutive years?
Oh, that one I did not get to. Yes, I mean, like 2 consecutive seasons for sure. Like we'll say the North Dakota championship for Nature's Fury could also, the team who won that could also win the World Class Championship for North Dakota.
Great. We do have a few more questions, but once again, I think just to keep things moving, we'll take them at the end.
Okay. So, what's your job as a coach after the tournament's over? First thing is, at official events, you should be receiving rubric-based feedback provided to you, either at the end of the tournament itself or within a reasonable time period following the event, so you can help find out what the judges felt your team did well and where it could improve. So you should review that feedback and experience with your team, help them to understand and learn from it, capture and emphasize any teaching moments, respond to any disappointments. Certainly that's going to happen. That's your opportunity to remind them of that core value. What you discover is more important than what you win. Remember, too, that children can take their cues from you and other adults around them. When those disappointments do happen, model the FL values, shift the focus to what they've achieved and what they've learned. Think about a strategy about how you might respond to a parent who complains about the process or results. I, as a judge advisor, I'm happy to speak to anyone about an event, especially at the event. That way I can get any information I need to. I encourage you to talk to the judge advisor only. Don't go after judges or other volunteers. Make sure you have any questions addressed to that person, the judge advisor, because that's the person who has the training and the experience and knowledge to handle those types of situations. Realize too that it's a subjective process. My goal since I started this position has been to uniformly train the judges and provide them with tools to where a team in upstate New York has the same experience as a team out in Arizona when it comes to a tournament. They have fun and they're judged consistently. Try to make sure every kid on your team walks away and has a positive experience. Talk about the fun parts of the season, have an after-season party, talk about what you did at the event, how much fun you had there. Remember, it's about the whole season and not just one day. I'm going to wrap up before I take the final questions. I'm going to, I guess, reiterate a few points, what I call sort of my vital judging notes. Number one, don't forget to have fun. You know, the fun rubs off on the judges, and you know, we want to see your kids having a good time. We know it's stressful, so try not to forget the fun part. Practice a lot and ask a lot of questions. Really demonstrate to judges how your team meets judging criteria. Try to make it as fact-based as possible. You know, for example, on things like quality and in mechanical design and programming, there's discussions of sort of reliability and consistency. If you can tell the judges, you know, our robot achieves that score 55 times out of 60, that's a better answer than our robot achieves that score almost all the time. Interact with the judges whenever you can. You know, make sure that if you're in your pit and they come to see you, that you're welcoming and answer all their questions. Make sure you understand specifics, all the logistics, advancement stuff, requirements for your tournament beforehand. Last thing you want to do is kind of show up and either realize you're late or not have a core values poster or something like that. Complete all 3 elements of the project and season requirements. You know, there are no season-specific. An example of a season-specific requirement would be to identify a senior partner for the senior solutions season. I really want to encourage you, especially the 3 elements of the project, to do the sharing component and make sure that the judges know that your team shared with someone. That's frequently the most overlooked one. Follow materials and software rules for robot design. You know, I'll never forget the one time I saw a team that had 2 different robot brains, 2 different NXTs come in and not realize that they could only use one of them. Give specific examples of problems you've encountered and how you solve them in your core values judging sessions. Understand and demonstrate core values and especially gracious professionalism everywhere and all the time. Provide judges with any extra information that you can, and then communicate with successful veteran teams and coaches. Have them come in and participate in those Q&A sessions with your team. Ask them, you know, what to expect if they've been to a specific tournament before, etc. It's really all about preparation. I mean, that's what, you know, my goal as a judge advisor for my judges is always to make sure they're prepared so on the actual day of the event they can just have a lot of fun. And same thing kind of goes for the teams as well. The better you can prepare them, the more fun they can have the day of the tournament. So that's all kind of the prepared remarks. I'd be happy to answer any additional questions that you and Jen have for me.
Great. We actually have a question about feedback. One of our coaches asks, how do we get feedback on getting better? Sometimes the comments, and I assume she means on the rubrics, aren't obvious on what our problems are.
I would agree with that. You know, we've been working tirelessly for years to get those comments up to a level that we can provide useful enough feedback. You know, we do the best we can. Unfortunately, from some judges you'll get better comments than others. I don't have, I think, a tried and true process to ensure that you'll get better comments back. But, you know, certainly provide feedback if you're given a chance for a survey, etc. You know, to note, you know, hey, we could have used better feedback, or more detailed feedback would have helped us, because that way we can kind of pinpoint better where we need to improve training for next year and so on.
We have an interesting question that also came up and that I think you've probably seen quite a bit of. At a qualifier last year, we noticed a few teams gave gifts to the judges, mostly cookies or candy. What is FLL's opinion of this practice?
Well, there's varying opinions. Personally, my opinion is I don't see anything inherently wrong with it. It's not they're not enough to sway judges' opinions, certainly, for awards. Some tournaments will, flat out state, no trinkets for the judges, no gifts for the judges. Some may encourage it. I honestly don't believe that affects judging and awards in any way. I've seen at World Festival events, for example, there are cultures where gift giving is the norm, and it's not intended to sway anybody's opinion. It's just sort of the cultural thing to do. So that's kind of where I fall on that. Is it may be cultural, it may just be something the team wants to do for fun. It's not going to change my mind one way or another, and it's not going to change any judge's mind that I've ever seen.
Great. I did want to kind of backtrack a little bit to the previous question. Actually, we have our lead on the First Lego League project, Janelle Schwanier, is on the line, and she gave us great advice to share on the question about feedback. She said that practicing with practice judges who are family and friends can also be a great way to get feedback. We did have a question that kind of goes back to the question of core values in operation at events. Do teams get demerits if there's crying? For instance, we know that there are stealth core values judges that go around and observe teams. If a judging session or robot game doesn't go well and someone is crying from frustration, does that reduce our core values score? This coach says that their team really cares and works hard, but if they're disappointed in their performance, it might be a side effect.
Again, I'll start out with a short answer and then expand on it. The short answer is no, it doesn't / shouldn't affect your score. We've actually prepared a document. I don't believe it's up on the web yet, but it soon will be, that has to do, we have prepared it for judge training, and it is a part of judge training that has to do with how to interpret core values, potential core values pitfalls, I guess you could call it. We've kind of broken behaviors that you might see in an event into green, yellow, and red behaviors, and things like crying. We understand, the judges understand that frustration happens. We know that what we don't want to do is to see one have like 1 minute or one second, one poor choice ruin everything for a team. And ideally what we would do is if we see that crying, the judge may come up to the coach and is everything okay, what's going on, and then that's your opportunity to say, oh, he or she is just really frustrated, etc. His friend snapped at him, it's all fine, move on. And it's sort of the red, and the worst behaviors are, might be grounds for immediate disqualification, things like bullying or inappropriate excessively inappropriate language, things like that. So we actually do have a guide for core values concerns, as I mentioned, and that should be on the website by the end of the month in time for tournaments.
We did have a follow-up question to your comment.
Next question, Jen.
We had a follow-up question to your question about, to your comment about sharing being overlooked. And this coach just was looking for some clarification. Were you referring to sharing the challenge, or spreading the learning, or sharing the FLL core values, or all of the above?
I specifically was referencing sharing the project and the research and your solution. But it also does extend to core values in terms of sharing with others. That's one of the core values, is sharing what you do in FLL. So certainly if you're doing sharing your project information with a group, that specifically helps you check that box for project.
Janelle chimes in to say, if you check out page...
question.
Oh, sorry. Janelle chimes in to say, if you check out page 4 of the challenge, this full challenge document, you'll get a list of the required elements for this year's project. So we did also have a question about handouts for judges. Should teams have handouts to give their judges? And if you believe so, what expectation and recommendation of content? I know you touched on this somewhat earlier.
Right. I would definitely encourage each team to complete a team profile sheet. Right now on the website there is one version of that. We do intend to revamp that a little bit to make it a little bit more helpful and relevant for the judges. Again, that should be available by the end of the month. We'll have that picture of your team, hopefully in your team t-shirts. In terms of other handouts or material leave behind, that's all up to each team. There's no expectation. There's no requirement for specific material to provide them. But I can think, especially when it comes to the project, you could have some supporting data, or perhaps if you ran your own testing of a prototype or a solution, you could present that data as think of it as like a little product brochure, or a trifold. You could even have a trifold for your robot that had the number of motors, number of pieces, why you call it what you call it, your successful missions, etc. This is has to do with sort of the product, and I hate to use the term marketing because it sometimes has a negative connotation for kids, but it's a way for them to get information to the judges that they may not otherwise be able to give them, and or they may not, it provides that hardcore data that I mentioned. It's more helpful to a judge to know and have the data, such as successful 55 times out of 60 versus it just does great, or we kept rebuilding the robot until it got done, etc. So any kind of supporting data that you can provide is great. I would also not encourage you to go overboard with that. And I work for the government, so I don't want to see more giant books of knowledge or regulations or things like that from an FLL team.
Janelle once again chimed in with the advice, keep it short and sweet. Project judges don't have time to read a whole binder, yep, even if they want to. So that's good advice. Skip, we had one question about if you disagree with the outcome of an event, what would be your recommended course of action?
It's a tough question. I would encourage you to document your thoughts at the moment. You know, hey, we feel this is what happened, this is what should have happened. Write it all down. And then I would encourage you to wait a day or two to make sure that that's really reflects your belief, or if it's just a you know, spur of the moment reaction to some disappointments. And then I would contact the tournament organizer and, you know, try as factually as you can to write down the disagreement or explain the disagreement and present it to them as you see it. And always try to go through sort of your local level first. Realize that, as I mentioned, you know, earlier, we tend to, excuse me, we realize that judging can be subjective and different people can come to different conclusions. And so overwhelmingly we would support excuse me, the decisions made at that local level. We're not going to go back and try to rejudge a tournament. So excuse me, sorry, I'm coughing here. Like I said, really consider whether that's something you want to do, and then, you know, if it's an obvious thing like you know, the team didn't meet the 40% hurdle, etc., like that, I would definitely encourage you to point that out to the tournament organizer. Realize that unfair things happen sometimes, even in the Super Bowl, and we try as much as we can to make sure that those don't happen, but they do.
Kind of go back also to the idea that the tournament is one day, so try not to let whatever happens that might be disappointing at a tournament color the whole experience for the kids.
You know, I encourage you definitely, if you have any judging questions, really any questions, to take advantage of those email addresses that Jen has posted. I read, myself and First staff read FLLjudge@usfirst.org questions, and we'll respond to any and all of them, or make sure that they get responded to in the case of questions that are more project or robot game related. But we definitely are the people behind those generic sounding accounts. So and we're happy, and that's what our job is to do, is to make sure that you guys have successful events and fun events, and that your kids want to come back and do it all again next year too. That's it.
Great. Thanks everybody, and have a great season.